Hello and welcome to Week 2 coverage of the Louisville Cube League Season 4. Today we'll be covering a vintage cube draft, following Scott through the draft and deck building before watching 3 matches in a King of the Hill format, meaning the winner will always stay in the feature match area as we work to crown this draft's 3-0 winner. If you are interested in hearing more about our season structure overall, be sure to check out the first video in the Season 4 playlist as it goes more in depth on the structure of the season as a whole. With those couple things being said, let's go ahead and jump into the draft with the rest of the commentary crew.
Hello there, my name's Joey.
I'm Prose.
And I'm Scott, the drafter.
And as we're getting into this first pack, I can't tell what that is you're looking at there.
That's the
what card is that
Balustrade
we're stopped
Worm.
on?
Yeah, I'm pausing on it for quite a while because I have never seen it before, so I was just giving it, a once over.
Okay. Anything in this pack stand out to you besides that? It doesn't seem like there's the best of pack ones.
Yeah, nothing really jumped at me, and I ended up picking this Gristlebrand mostly because it fits into a few different archetypes. I mean, there's a number of ways to put big creatures into play cheaply or whatever, so I just sort of took that and see where the next packs took me, which, as you can see, followed up with another large idiot.
Yeah, not a bad 1-2 there. Obviously need to find some way to get them into play, but, well, right on schedule, I guess.
This pack has a lot to like. Animate Dead, most likely the pick, but that Ponder and Dothy Voidwalker are not things I'd be mad about taking. I often like Dothy in majorly black Reanimator decks, both because it would be very good against us, and secondly, it's just a nice little thing to do on the early turns.
And I felt similarly. I was sort of hoping the Voidwalker might wheel, given that it's double black, and it just seemed like of the two cards, it would be the most likely to table, if anything. But I ended up taking the Animate Dead and followed it up with yet another large idiot. Now, I want to note that Reanimator is not my favorite way to put large creatures into play cheaply. I think there's too many working pieces that all have to line up the right way. But I opened on 2 big creatures and now a third, so I just sort of have to see where the packs take me in terms of like utilizing those options.
And I like the Epicure pick here because not only is it a way to put things into your graveyard, but it's an acknowledgement that you're going to be red because, as you're mentioning, the better ways to put things into play through the Breach and Sneak Attack are reasons why we might want to be red down the road anyway.
We have Through the Breach at home, and it's this Corpse Dance, I guess. It's the best we're going to get for now, so.
Yeah, there are almost nonstop options in this first pack of just like Reanimator cards specifically. So I'm sort of begrudgingly settling into that lane the more that they're passed to me.
A little bit interested to see the Harvester here. Obviously, the Blood token can discard, but I believe the removal spell, which I'm blanking on the name of at the moment, also would have been a discard outlet out of that last pack.
Is it Bitter Triumph?
Yes,
Yeah.
Bitter Triumph would have been
So
an
the
option
thought there was that my favorite versions of Reanimator are like black-red focused and like low to the ground with a somewhat aggressive backup plan. And that 2-drop, I'm blanking on the name.
Blood Tithe Harvester.
Yeah, it does like everything you want in that strategy. Of course, I get past a pretty good blue card, so immediately that is kind of out of the water.
Interesting. And I like more commonly in the past, as you're saying, black red, but ever since Flash has made its way back into the cube, I feel like I am leaning a little bit more towards blue and some of those things. So I don't mind the Occult Epiphany pickup either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was the thought too. Again, I don't love Reanimator specifically, and if I found a Flash, I would snap it off almost over anything else in the cube. So we'll just have to wait and see if that happens.
Yeah, Flash not working with Gristlebrand, but great with both the Vaultburn Tyrant and Atratza. Interesting to see that pick take a while because Ponder seemed like the clear pick to me. Was there anything specific you were considering besides it?
If I was going to end up more heavily blue, Subtlety being free is just a thing that I think is always worth keeping in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading this black equipment. I didn't take it. Didn't want it.
Has that aggro bend, but not anything else besides that.
That card is certainly hard to pick, I feel, without one of the few demon payoffs.
Yeah, so pretty happy with pack 1. I mean, again, I'm not in an archetype I love being in, but I have a lot of good cards for it already, and I'm set up well to go in a few different directions, kind of under that umbrella.
Really like that Wooded Foothills. You've got, I think, one or two. Oh, maybe no fetchable lands for that one yet, actually.
But
yeah, none yet.
Red.
Yeah, I know that I'm going to be at least somewhat red, and I am sort of waffling on how much blue is going to be in my deck, so just a fetch land to hopefully tie that all together down the road.
Well, there's one you can fetch.
Yeah, immediately getting paid off on that. Though I feel like the Metamorphosis Fanatic is something we're hoping tables, because...
Yeah, it seems pretty likely with the way that some of this other stuff has been going around the table, though.
Yeah, and I honestly view that one as kind of like a nice to have, but not like strictly necessary. It was quite good for me in the draft. Spoiler alert, it does table. But it's not something I'm gonna like look to slam early in a pack if there's a better option.
Getting some good value out of this pack so far. 2 lands, that Inquisition, and then our 3rd Reanimate effect, I believe, in the Necromancy. Another permanent one is nice.
Yeah, really like this Memory Lapse here. Okay. A couple other cards worth considering, but that Memory Lapse looked pretty good there.
Yeah, and that I only thought about that as long as I did because I still am not like 100% sure that I'm going to have enough blue mana to be able to like play that reliably.
Right, that Ketria Triome might wheel. I had been looking at that to make the blue splash maybe better in one of the previous picks, and I'm pretty sure the pack it was in had enough good stuff that there's a chance we see that Triome come back around. Though maybe it's in the pack with the Fanatic. I've already lost track of which was which.
Didn't show the camera cleanly, so get another look at it. Just another land trying to make my mana playable here. Love Snuff Out.
Love Snuff Out, yeah.
There's the Fanatic back.
It's come back, yep.
And really nothing else I was even considering that pack, so it was pretty easy to pick there.
Oh, was this an 8-man or a 6-man draft? I thought we maybe still had an 9. It was an 8-man? Okay, just felt like it came around quick, but I guess just had some quick picks
flying
in between.
In this pack. It's not a bad value creature there.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded the... Man, blanking on a lot of names of cards. That Rakdos creature, also perfectly reasonable, but I think we're solidly enough in blue that Kitsa makes sense.
Inti not a bad way to keep your low to the ground plan and also get some cards in the graveyard.
And we have enough cantrips and removal that Kitsa could actually be a decent attacking threat as well. I don't want to fully discount it there.
Yeah. A couple of pretty heavy hitters in this pack.
That Delta.
Yeah, some nice lands. A Remand is always nice to have.
It's questionable if there's so many nice lands that you don't really need to take one between Vista, Blood Crypt, and this Delta. And there was also Undercity Sewers, I believe.
So yeah, I do end up taking the Delta there. There were a lot of really good lands that I would like to have, but I considered the fact that I wanted multiple of them, so I just decided to focus on the mana. And we see that again here with another fetch land pick.
Yeah, just trying to improve that mana, though our blue splash isn't that heavy, so I don't know if we need much more for it.
It's not heavy, but a lot of the cards you want to play, like Ponder and Kitsa, you want to play like early.
Early, yeah. Entomb here feels huge.
And Shallow Grave in that pack to maybe wheel.
Yeah, Entomb was very, very nice.
Was that from the Catacombs at the front of this pack? Maybe I missaw and it was something else, but...
I don't think so. That's Archfiend of the Dross.
Yeah, it's the 6/6. I was on Gitaxian Probe, and then I found this Dark Ritual, and with an Entomb already in my deck and an Animate Dead too, I just felt like the Dark Ritual has to be the pick there. If you remember all the way back to pack 1, and I took a Wooded Foothills, that can now get untapped black mana. So I thought that was worthwhile enough to pick the dual land.
Gotcha. A little bit punished here maybe by that thought, though, as Badlands would accomplish that, and it doesn't look like there's anything else too valuable in this pack here from what I see.
Yeah, I mean, Faithless Looting is a thing that's worth having sometimes. As you see, I selected it here, thinking my mana was strong enough at this point. I didn't feel too terrible about my removal situation at this point either, so I don't know. I just wasn't sweating it.
It's a pretty good option in this pack with the Infernal Grasp.
Yeah, it's sort of that or Night's Whisper. Containment Priest could be just a defensive draft here.
Yeah.
And you have a good point that if you're fast enough, you don't need as much interaction. You have the Inquisition to fill that role. And I missed Faithless Looting because I'm not used to that art on it. So just another real fast one. But finally get a piece of interaction in Infernal Grasp.
Well, another one. I have Snuff Out and Fatal Push. And a Fire Covenant if you...
Life Death, another great late hit here.
Yeah, so even my distaste for this archetype notwithstanding, I'm feeling pretty confident about my deck. I mean, I don't have any power. I really only have Dark Ritual as a way to like speed up what I'm trying to do. But what I'm trying to do is pretty quick anyway, so I'm feeling, I would say, more confident than average in this draft, but not like I have a guaranteed 3-0.
This pack definitely powered you up a lot, but unfortunately did have to pass very cheap interaction that's good against you in the form of Ghost Vacuum, Containment Priest, seeing some ability that other players will have to possibly answer you down the road.
Always a concern, but you never know when those are going to end up and if they're even going to be played or playable by the people that end up taking them, and if you're even going to play against those people. So I try not to think about that too terribly much.
Sure.
Now, team drafts are different, but we are not doing that. So,
and particularly, I think that applies more to cards like Containment Priest being a colored spell versus colorless spell from Ghost Vacuum, where whoever gets that, if they play you, they're going to be able to bring it in.
So here is the deck we ended up with. If there's anything particular you want to speak to here? I don't think any of these inclusions seem particularly surprising.
No, I mean, the attempt at sort of a low to the ground sort of aggro backup plan didn't really come together, but I do have a couple of pretty impactful 2-drops there. But really, I'm just kind of focused pretty intently on discarding a large creature and then putting it back into play somehow.
One very small piece of value that I would like to point out is you mentioned the Bayou being fetchable off of your different fetches.
Wooded Foothills,
Wooded Foothills, making Wooded Foothills into a black land before you had Badlands. But I do like how that Bayou plus the Hollowed Fountain, which serves similar function with Marsh Flats, making it blue, means that Atratza is technically castable in this deck. Again, weird out to play towards your reanimation targets being castable, but it is something I do enjoy about it.
With Dark Ritual in the deck too.
You sculpt your mana base during the draft, and if you're able to pick up those like extra duels or like half on color, sometimes that stuff just happens. And again, it may not ever come up, but sometimes it will, and sometimes it'll be very important and good. So.
All right, well, why don't we check out some games? All right, so we'll hop into the first round here. Scott was playing against me. Unfortunately, we did lose the beginning of this game, so just for a quick recap of what's happened up to this point and kind of what's going on the board. Not a lot of action over the first few turns, but at some point there was an Occult Epiphany cast for 2 or 3, I can't remember, that did meet that Hull Breacher in play. Which I was a lot happier about before Atraxa was one of the cards discarded for it. So that's where those spirits came from. I believe currently we're resolving an Animate Dead, which has been cast. I appear to be shuffling after something, and so let's just hop into the game and pick it up from there.
Based on what I'm seeing under your lands, it looks like maybe these are cards going on the bottom for dig through time.
Yeah,
So
that
maybe
sounds right.
digging for an answer in response to an Animate Dead.
Yep.
You can find a mana leak, but I have the sneaky dark ritual to pay for the mana leak.
Very cool.
Oh, apologies. So the anime dead was getting the Metamorphosis Fanatic, which is then going to bring back Atraxa, so much worse.
Well, it depends on which side of the table you're on.
I was on my side of the table, therefore, much worse.
Also, I don't know, expect Prose knows that much about Scott's deck at this point, but seeing Gristlebrand, something that would have been much nicer to see with that Hull Breacher in play, maybe a little bit of an extra dagger here.
Oh, yeah. Very kindly organizing our Atraxa options here as they're laid out. Definitely makes this part a bit easier to parse through. So it looks like Memory Lapse, Ponder, an Island, and a Voldaren Epicure. So
Yeah, I gotta say, people have to do that with their Atraxas. Like, I don't understand why they don't. It's so much easier to see which card type you get, and I don't know.
really upsetting that you weren't more interested in that Gristlebrand with Hull Breacher in play, but I guess.
Or even Magda being a more aggressive creature than Epicure. I feel like Epicure's the scariest card to take there. And Memory Lapse now being up, because that was before a land drop was made, means that not much, I imagine, you can do to battle back, though. Oracle maybe ramping the mana a little bit here.
Yeah.
Definitely able to make double land drops. Let's see if they can both come off the top. Spellseeker, I imagine, looks a little scary from Scott's spot, as I usually prefer to play that in more unfair decks. And Tamiyo being in play, Spellseeker on top, gotta imagine Prose has Time Walk in this deck. Both those cards point there pretty heavily.
My day would have been much better if I had Time Walk in this deck, I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, so it looks like picked up the Mana Leak with Tamiyo, do have this one ring.
So choosing not to Memory Lapse here, because then would just get Mana Leaked pretty much face up.
Yeah. And, One Ring is extremely powerful, obviously, but I'm way ahead on the board, so tossing away my Memory Lapse for basically no value didn't seem like a great play to me, so just have to let it happen.
The ring's protection buying a turn, but still get to use Scott's next turn to take out the Tamiyo at least, so won't be making no progress on attacks.
Right.
Take out the Tamiyo and buffer my life total quite a bit.
That is true.
Saw me reading the ring there for a second. I was just checking on this really fun interaction with Fast Bond, which is not something I had considered before, but...
Right, because Fast Bond deals you damage, you don't take that damage because you have protection from everything.
Yeah, so getting a little bit of play out of the deck here, but not coming up with anything exceptionally useful to do.
It's a rare interaction with the One Ring, because normally when your protection from you yourself matters, usually it's a negative thing. Here, a rare occasion where protection from yourself being included in everything does matter.
Already preparing for the outcome of this attack, yeah.
Itching to put it into the graveyard. Attacked by so much lifelink there.
Yeah.
Can't even do the math. Look at me struggling. Okay, there we go.
I think we had I think I was actually the one who did the math wrong, because as usual I forgot about the -1/-0 from Metamorphosis Fanatic, or from Animate Dead rather. So
glad to see it wasn't a discussion of whether or not Atraxa had double lifelink, because double lifelink isn't a thing.
It does, though, to be clear.
It does have double lifelink, it just doesn't do anything.
It could kind of be a thing, right? If you give Exalted Angel lifelink.
That's different though. Really showing your age with the Exalted Angel reference too.
You're not wrong. Finding Echo on the top there, not a bad spot with Hull Breacher. We do know about the memory lapse.
Yes, lots of shared information on both sides. Of note that expressive iteration had the potential to slightly get around the known information that Oracle was giving.
Yeah.
Oracle revealing a new card on top here. It doesn't look like there's a ton of cards left between Oracle making extra land drops and Tameo plussing at least once, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
Well as the
feels like
ring.
and the ring continuing to dig. Gone a good portion of the way through Prose's deck.
Yeah, so this turn was kind of a comedy of errors with, in my mind, putting together this whole line of considering Eons into the graveyard, flashing it back, and having this mana leak for the memory lapse, despite there just being 5 lands untapped on the other side of the table. And then insult to injury, even with the memory lapse, the Echo of Eons is just gone now. So
Flashback is a sneaky one. It'll get you sometimes.
yeah.
Yes, many old hats familiar with that interaction with Remand was common at some point.
Yeah, this deck was not particularly good at pulling itself out of a hole like that, and yeah, just done after that.
Yeah, no way to battle back. Like we said, Prose has gone through most of his deck, and if you couldn't put together something there, it makes sense. Not worth playing out the next turn.
I think at some point here we were joking about how you saw the Echo of Eons plus the whole Breacher, as well as there was a Time Spiral exiled there, that my deck's main win condition was just breaking my opponent's will to play the game anymore. And that's not going to happen so much with, 10 lifelink power in play, so. Get to actually see the beginning of a game here.
Yes, slower start. Prose has all his colors. As
What? You said slower start?
Well, last time we picked up in the middle of a game.
Okay.
It wasn't slow at all.
We're coming into both games with a very quick animate dead, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, I wonder why more people don't organize their Atraxa card types as they put them out.
Okay, listen. I don't want to be on record defending any of the decisions I make with any of my Atraxas on camera, okay? You can't make me.
yeah,
you
if
just
you lay
flip
them
over
out,
10 cards, and then you have to think about so much.
Yeah.
and if you lay them
I'm
out
just
by
assuming
type,
I'm doing a little bit okay. That's where I'm at.
he doesn't want to make it easier on us to make fun of him for his picks if we can't tell what he could have picked over a different card. Yeah.
Yeah, I also can't defend that. Like, I did it so good the first time, and then I just didn't do it. Maybe I just assumed you were going to concede so quickly that I don't know.
I'll be honest. I had considered it and then decided to not because it was being recorded. Because yeah, my turn 2 decision there was whether or not to play a Signet or to play that mana leak, or to hold up that mana leak in my hand, and obviously made the wrong decision and ditching the Horizon land at the end of Scott's turn, and yeah, just not interested.
We didn't see anything that could answer Atraxa game 1, and I was about to ask if there was anything that you were digging for with that crack, and the answer seems to be no.
No.
We'll get to stick with Scott going into the second match.
All right, so heading into round 2 here, Spencer, who I believe this was the first time that he has drafted with us today, so looks like he's on the mulligan.
He's new to the league, and I have no idea what he's playing or the level of player the level of game he's bringing to the table. So we're just we're gonna explore and find out.
Obviously, off to a good start for him to match up to 1-0. So if this is his first draft, he's got a 100% win rate right now going into this match.
So Rayland doesn't really yield any fruit, except for not having me draw yet another land. But I do have a solid turn 2 play here.
Right, no free entomb essentially off of your fetch. seen plenty of that in other formats. Had the potential to happen here.
Spencer
Mana
opened up with,
explosion.
it's quite a bit more powerful of a turn 2. Primed for a really strong turn 3. Whereas I'm just cracking a blood, hopefully discarding a large thing. Okay, step 1.
It's always a Tratza so far.
Yeah, I got a lot of Atraxa play out of this draft. I don't know where my other guys were hiding, but
Rethinking our land drop here.
just doing some quick counting.
Yeah.
And then he decides a turn 3 Battlesphere. It is pretty strong.
Yeah, not a bad spot.
I have
to
a
be.
little bit of
Memory lapse,
counterplay,
though.
but he has 6 mana untapped on his next turn, so literally any untapped land, and it's just right back into play. And if you recall back to my draft, I don't have hard counter magic for a creature, so
yeah, the way
we're
he
just
did
gonna have to live in that world.
that math almost seemed like it represented a counterspell. So I'm sure you weren't even fully comfortable with that counter for a moment.
Man, once again,
I continue. Yeah,
the first Atraxa immaculate. Everyone since.
I cannot defend it. I can't. I just have I have nothing to say. You're just right.
This looks like Faithless Looting.
And this was a really tough decision because it seems pretty clear that the game is not going to end in a turn or two, just based off of this one reanimate. So I really need to try and sculpt what I want my next few turns to be, given that he's going to also impact the board pretty significantly on his next turn.
Yeah, I was surprised to see you momentarily switch to Ponder, as Faithless Looting needs to get that Vaultburn Tyrant into the graveyard. That is one. We talked about the castability of your big guys. Even on 3, maybe going up to 4 mana, you do not have any ability, I believe, in this deck to cast the Vaultborn Tyrant without a Magna Treasure, is I think the only way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
I think I agree with that. I mean, if you're taking one of the Tyrant, you need to take the Faithless Looting and probably the Corpse Dance to go with it, it feels like.
Yeah, I was thinking about a lot of different things. I honestly couldn't tell you at this point, but I know I was considering a bunch of different packages of cards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Corpse Dance not the best with the Tyrant, as it doesn't give you its dies trigger. Yeah.
And here, despite having the land, he just passes. So I'm not really sure what this represents with this much mana, and 3 colors of it at that. It could be so many different things.
Right. Whatever it is, it must be expensive, because he had a couple mana left last turn that didn't get used, and he chose not to replay the Battle Sphere after drawing it, and he drew the Battle Sphere, so it wasn't any other new card.
Yeah, so in absence of any knowledge of what might happen to me, I'm just gonna go about my proactive game plan here and do the thing that was pretty scripted to do. He's got Odawara, so he's going to take a big chunk of damage here, but then my board presence will be reduced down to just a lowly 3/2.
Right, the Vaultborn Tyrant getting exiled.
Yeah, he's pointing that out, but we're not quite at the end of turn yet. I have a land drop to play at the very least.
Yeah, but he wants it gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
And taking 1 from this again, kind of priced into, because he can't tap out and let the Blood Tithe Harvester just kill him.
Yeah.
So now he needs this Battle Sphere to present enough of a defense that he can afford to untap it, so he won't just die to his own vault.
Yeah, and on the board, 3 life and 2 life are exactly the same. I mean, I have a 3-power creature and nothing else, so it really doesn't cost a ton to take a point there.
That is true. From his perspective, he can't be certain of that. We saw Bone Crusher Giant going around. There's plenty of things that could deal 2 damage instead of 3, but
you got to deal with the problem that you know about before you worry about the problems you imagine. Surveil looking for some help here.
Seems like you got a decision, whatever it is. Unsurprising after resolving two fatties that put more cards in your hand.
Looks like he's going to untap
Yeah.
the Mana Vault here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a follow-up, I suppose.
Yeah, he's got basically unlimited mana at this point.
So he's sitting on 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, potentially 11 mana this turn if it's for an artifact.
Oh, is that
Yeah,
Lotus?
and-
I couldn't actually tell with the glare.
Just Academy.
Academy, okay.
Yeah, and this Battle Ball can close things out pretty quickly. He's playing pretty conservatively, but still, a good chunk of my life total here.
Right. This represents he wants to be able to trade through a removal spell. But he has a creature to follow up, though, I guess doesn't want to lose the Displacer Kitten.
Yeah, I mean, you hold on to that one if you can. Now he's got 4 blockers, so it'd be pretty hard. I do have a Fire Covenant that would be a pretty fantastic draw here, just ending the game. But that is not what I surveilled to the top. I also had forgotten about this looting the last turn, which I, again, cannot defend. It's just a mistake.
Atraxa back in the yard. Getting that Atraxa back into play would go a long way here, it seems. Okay.
Right. Was just getting close to being able to hard cast it, too, so...
We're missing... Oh, no, we do have our Hallowed Fountain, so yeah, we're just one land away, but...
Right, well, I don't think we have the Bayou yet, but...
Yeah, that's what I mean, the green mana.
So Atraxa has flipped over this Fire Covenant, so now that is known information too, which is certainly relevant here.
So this makes it look like if you had resolved the Faithless Looting the turn before, maybe this sequence could have found a castable Fire Covenant this turn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the missing it that one turn was really, really bad. I think is probably the single biggest play in this game.
It looks like Spencer's top decking, so if he doesn't find anything, looks like he'll probably get away with it. As currently, he has no answer to this Atraxa.
That is true, but it is a very scary board position. You can imagine any number of top decks that just completely blow the game open for him.
For sure.
Also, any non-creature here. I mean, I guess he could block with the Harvester as well, but Atraxa can't actually trade with the Battlesphere currently.
Like let's see what that top deck was. Tinker.
Interesting. Feels like... Okay, maybe he's realizing now that he needs to blink something? Okay.
He, in fact, does not need to blink something because he has Portal.
And that's just lethal? Okay.
Extremely so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally there you'd at least tap one of your mana rocks to cast the spell to blink it, but why do that when your opponent's just dead?
Yep. So he has shown me that he's a pretty competent player, and on top of most things, in addition, he has a quite a strong deck, or at least a good pile of synergies that he presented in game 1.
Right. Can you remind me? I know I saw a Fiery Confluence in the draft. Did that end up in your pile somewhere, or did we not get that one?
No, we didn't. I don't think it even tabled, if I'm recalling correctly.
So unfortunate that we don't have that option to us, at least in sideboarding or anything like that. Doubt there was much to change then.
Just want to point out, because it's burned itself into my mind, and now everybody watching can know that Spencer has changed which side of the table his deck is sitting on for the second game. So
well, now I'm not going to be able to unsee that.
Also, it's now graveyard beside deck instead of graveyard under deck. This is a different player.
Warfare. Yeah.
I'm going to claim that I can...
Game, and I'm on life tilt, so I can't imagine what you were feeling, in the day.
You know, I didn't notice.
claim that I can see something different about the hands. You switch this person out with a stunt double.
Yeah. All right. Well,
We're both just sort of playing setup here. Although he threatens to do way worse things with this turn with accelerating his mana by 5 on turn 2. So
similar to the last game.
I have a creature in the graveyard, so I'm ready to reanimate this turn with this necromancy. And again, it is Atraxa.
And surely this time.
No, listen, as the day went on, it did not get better, it got worse.
We're now on 2 rows of 5 instead of one row of 10, I suppose, so.
It's not better.
But only 3 cards from this one. Kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, in cube, it's hard to maximize that number a lot of the time.
Still, you know, I'm on board with a threat. You know, that's where I want to be. But just wait,
yeah.
Just wait. We're not done yet. We are not finished yet. He gets an Atraxa trigger, and he's gonna. I mean, he's gonna be quite rude here, if I'm being honest.
Well, I see a Lightning Greaves, so I have to imagine that's gonna be the.
I don't even know if that's the artifact.
The Portal of Phyrexia.
Well, if you want to recall back to my draft, can you figure out a way I can deal with an Atraxa on the opposing side that has a Lightning Greaves on it?
I mean, can you? I can't think of a way that most people could deal with that. So.
Well, there was the Sheoldred's Edict that someone got, but
yeah, but it was not me. So I'm sitting here watching this resolve, hoping beyond hope that he does not take Lightning Greaves, but it is so appealing. Like, you just play it and equip it immediately, get to hit in, and then what am I to do here, you know? So he obviously, you know, he makes that play, and I am extremely under the gun here.
Right, this is going to require Gristlebrand getting into fatty on fatty conflict here.
Dude, you figured it out. You found the one out I have in this deck right now. The question is, did I figure it out in the moment? Which I guess we're going to find out.
Well, at 11, so presumably getting to take another turn in this game, but with Lightning Greaves, maybe not even the case.
And we need Gristlebrand at instant speed, so it needs to be necromancy, right? Because we know he also picked up an Oko with there's a known information Oko. So sorcery speed Gristlebrand also wouldn't be enough. So it not only has to be exactly Gristlebrand, it has to be exactly necromancy.
You are forgetting Corpse Dance, but you are right on the analysis that I do need an instant speed. Assuming he plays the Oko this turn, but it's hard to imagine he not doing that as he does it.
Well, if he didn't play the Oko this turn, it would be even more protected, because I wasn't thinking instant speed to attack. I was thinking instant speed to block.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
So Oko in hand would have been even safer in the way I was imagining setting this up, but still hard to imagine he's not pretty safe here. I believe we didn't see blood sacrifice at end of turn. I think there was a mana up, so speaks to having a plan.
And I do have the Corpse Dance.
So maybe it didn't have Gristlebrand yet and was saving the blood token to draw Gristlebrand for turn.
Well, we have this in Tomb, so
yeah.
Maybe I just missed something then. Because
it's maybe I'm giving Scott too much of the benefit of the doubt here, but you don't want to crack your blood and draw your Gristlebrand in this position, I think. So, but sink into Stupor.
Have a Spell Pierce, but he pays.
Yeah,
I tried to get him. You got to try.
That's what you draft the cards for. So
it looks like you even got your Atraxa back to go into the next match. So avoided that pitfall with Cube.
Yeah, we're pretty good about that. The half
Mm,
sleeve, the cards that switch sides is aces,
it's a
honestly.
generous we you use because I've seen plenty of members of our cube group fail that test.
Okay, listen, Atraxa flips notwithstanding, I feel like my mechanics are pretty clear generally. So I am a big proponent of the half sleeve card when it switches sides.
For sure.
Um, so Spencer did win that match. So I am off camera now. I am no longer the king of the hill. So I'll just follow up really quickly and say that I did not win my last match. So I ended this draft at 1 and 2.
A pity because that deck seemed like straightforward what the Reanimator deck wants a lot of the time. It goes to speak to why Flash has kind of replaced Reanimator as the premier, like, big fatty threat in Cube these days.
Yeah, well, my third round opponent was Matt, and his deck was black white, sort of like mid range creatures and lots of disruption. And Reanimator being such a fragile, you need a discard outlet and a creature and a reanimate spell. His disruption was just so easily able to pick it apart, and he ran me over pretty quickly, honestly.
So, speaking of the fact that you're moving off camera, that means Spencer's gets to stay as King of the Hill. Let's take a look at what his deck was doing.
Yeah, so you can see a lot of what we already saw on the table. Although we did not see this coveted jewel, which the coveted jewel kitten combo is quite potent.
Right. We saw Displacer Kitten, so assumed there was something to combine
Mm-hmm.
with that. This Gadgeteer, I'm not familiar with all the Gadgeteer combos. I don't see any combo with it. It is a good card in his deck, so I'm not surprised to see it in
No,
his deck. But
yeah, I think it's just a bit of a value piece with all these cheap artifacts.
It's a fair gadgeteer, if
Mm-hmm.
one could call it that.
speaking of a card being too fair, this Psychic Frog seems ambitious.
Hard to say no to a psychic frog normally, but yeah,
There's almost. Am I missing the black mana?
I mean, we have Coalition Relic, Relic of Sauron, Talisman of Dominance, Chromatic Star,
Talon
Lotus
Gates,
Petal.
Lotus Petal, yeah,
It is
it's
it
an
is an
ambitious
aggressive
one.
splash.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you don't consider it a thing you have to play on turn two, um, it's better, I guess.
See, that's my
Who
argument, though.
knows?
Psychic Frog, unlike some of these other cards, like the white cards are all late game cards, so I'd be far
Mm-hmm.
more willing to cut the planes than I would be, especially since Misty finds Lush Portico. Like, I, I feel like of all the early game plays, like Psychic Frog is high up there.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's sitting in his sideboard at this point? Maybe he was scrapping for playables, and that was just the best of bad options.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
But at any rate, he finds himself at 2-0, looking poised to trophy in his first draft of the league. So
Yep.
can't argue with it too terribly much.
Right, right. And we can take a quick look at his opponent in the 3-0 match, Daniel. Similar single. Well, I guess Minskin Boo as well, but Hex Drinker and Minskin Boo sneaking into an otherwise red white deck.
Right. This splash a little more supported with Savannah, Taiga, Verdant Catacombs, uh, two triomes that are an off color as well as green and red. So, and Commercial District.
And the Verge, I mean, he's actually really well set up for those splashes.
Yeah.
This deck looks quite good to me.
With the exception of Savannah, all of his splash lands are also red lands that can make Minsc and Boo slightly awkward. It's the reason why we see six planes, because so few of his duels got to be white. Often not the place you want to be at in a three-color deck. You'd much prefer to have things evened out, whereas now having six planes in his deck leads to, despite having a lot of non-basics, still some pretty awkward draws he's possibly set up
Mhm.
for.
There is Luris in the deck, not as in companion mode. Obviously, that wouldn't work with the multitude of large creatures he has.
Mhm.
But an important feature to watch out for.
This deck looks like exactly what I want in this strategy, besides maybe the mana being a little bit better, maybe a couple of things that combo well with a Johnny, but pretty happy with this deck. But it feels like this is normally a rough matchup to play as the aggro player if you don't have your Thalia pretty early. So we'll have to see how it all comes together for him as we jump into that match.
All right, so Daniel and Spencer squaring up for the 3-0 here.
Important thing to note, this is the same stunt double, it looks like, from Spencer's second game against Scott, as the deck has remained on the right side.
On the right side, yeah.
Although, can I just posit that we're washed already? I mean, this is our second 3-0 match on camera, and none of the original members of the league have shown up in any of them.
Very true.
Uh-oh.
Very, very true. So just a probe here. And a tapped land. So that's Screaming Nemesis, Pyrokinesis, Lightning Bolt.
Not the most imposing of openers from the aggressive player here.
Right, and cards that I'm not excited for in the matchup. There's removal is not something you would love to have against someone who isn't putting very many creatures into play. And Screaming Nemesis even kind of invites interaction in a way that Spencer does not need to present.
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of hand that Spencer's deck will gladly just go way over the top of very quickly.
So getting Screaming Nemesis onto the battlefield here. And into the red zone.
Yeah, as just mentioned, I don't think Spencer's in a spot where he will be dealing damage to the Nemesis to trigger it too soon, so it's probably just going to hit in for 3 several times. Oh, and we're phasing out the Nemesis. Speaks to that maybe... Oh.
Maybe phase out nothing so we can...
So we can fracture identity, the Nemesis. Yeah. Okay. Which I mentioned Spencer not dealing damage to the Nemesis. Daniel very likely to, as he's got 2 damage dealing removal spells in hand.
Yeah, it kind of seems, gonna Pyrokinesis it right now.
Honestly, it's a good spot on Daniel's part, recognizing that the Pyrokinesis was likely not going to do much in this matchup, so finding a spot to use it, you might as well.
Right, the Bolt could have answered it, but that would have cost 1 mana. It's actually worth using the extra card because it means he has all his mana this turn for the Minskin Boo to smash in for 4 with a little hamster.
Yeah, good follow-up.
Probably not going to come up that Daniel can't gain life this game, as we just looked at the deck. Can't recall seeing anything where that would be punishing, but even if we had something like that, Spencer's deals damage in such large chunks once he takes over the game that clause
Lurisant
not
Flage
relevant.
would be the only life gain, and yeah, not super relevant probably.
So we see Gadgeteer
and a Bank Buster.
So threatening to draw cards multiple ways, both discounted by the Gadgeteer, I believe.
Yep.
Little setup turn for Spencer here, just putting some things on the board and converting them back into cards as well.
This
big hamster
becoming a 7/7.
Drawing that card in that spot, from Daniel's position, I'd be thinking about what interaction he's trying to draw. Probably Swords or Path is what he's representing with the Lush Portico, so means that a little bit of information that you might be able to infer about what Spencer could have in his deck that he's digging towards.
There's a Thalia
piece of information. Thalia, but the damage has been done mana-wise.
Yeah, bit off tempo, yeah.
The big thing that I like Thalia for in this kind of matchup is just limiting the damage that Upheaval can do, just increasing that cost by 1, definitely relevant. But we know that I don't believe we saw that when we looked at Spencer's deck. So
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think he's a mana short here. Yeah, okay, he is.
Mana short and concedes when
Yeah.
that is realized. Almost, though. Almost a hard cast portal through Athalia.
oh yes, there was the Thalia. Okay, Thalia did make the difference there. We were talking about her maybe being too late, but
Though
made the
Shade
difference.
Thalia showed up at the perfect time, turns out. Deck remaining on the right side for this final game, so our paid actor was only here for the first game against Scott, it seems. Maybe this is the real Spencer after all. All right, well, there's a
quite strong opening.
Better timed Thalia, yeah.
Wow, and Spencer without a second land.
Brutal into paying mana for Zern Orb, and just if that's the best
Johnny,
thing he has
wow,
that turn.
I was going to say, if Daniel had a solid follow-up, then this game's about over before it really started, and he showed up with a great 2-drop.
Yeah, he doesn't have any of the cards that make a Johnny like really insane, but a Johnny's still scary.
Okay, so able to phase Thalia out. I'm not sure why she's back in hand. Phase Thalia out to play this Bank Buster.
Got to get some counters on there, but maybe Spencer is not thinking this game's going to even last very long.
I'm staring down 5 power here. Well, the lands are coming now, but they're not the most helpful.
Right, and we seem to be working towards a scenario where every new land he finds, he's gonna have to start trading them in for life with that Zern Orb soon. So it's a losing proposition long term. We're seeing possibly from Daniel some limitation on overload of white mana. 2 planes and a pearl means if he's got any spells that are double red, or I guess Minskin Boo is the only one that's red and green.
Yeah, I think he was. It looked like he had a Minskin Boo in his hands. I think he was thinking about that this turn, but
right. But he would have been a mana short of
Thalia.
that because of Thalia anyway, even if he wasn't stuck off one of the colors.
The old naked Thassa's Oracle here. Good old fashioned Scry 2 value creature.
Yeah, it's in here for the Displacer Kitten and Coveted Jewel combo. That's like the finish for that. Clearly, that is not what's happening this game.
I had missed that when we were looking at the deck. I'm not confident I like once you have that combo going, I feel like you could just set up to win with a ham, saying what you don't necessarily need the Oracle, and we definitely see the weakness of just drawing the Oracle here, though Spencer was so far behind, most cards are going to look pretty poor.
Right. So
yeah, and Daniel finds the 5th land and 2nd color necessary to play a Minskin Boost, so now we're just pressuring even more. We have to sack a land to stay alive here.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So looks like the players might have done a little bit of wrong math. Spencer would have just sacrificed another land, putting him in an even worse position. So that concession still would have come on upkeep regardless. Sure, he would have sacrificed one more land to stay alive if they had gotten the math right. So unfortunate stumbling there.
Yeah, I mean the stumble plus the Thalia, just too much to overcome there.
Right. Daniel's deck game 1 played pretty straightforward aggro. The cards didn't even line up quite the way you want them to. But that second game was the Motzen obviously play a lot into that. But even just the selection of cards, Thalia into Minskin Boo with anything in between, like it's going to be rough.
Yeah, so congrats to Daniel getting the second 3-0 of the season, his first.
And interesting to see maybe the most fair deck of the three, aggro managing to take it down despite seeing a powerful deck drafted in Reanimator and this deck that Spencer was piloting just good old send creatures into the red zone, finishes it off, and I think that finishes it off for us here as we will have to catch it in the next draft as we see a little bit more vintage later on.
So with all that, we have our winner for today's drafts. Congratulations to Daniel for taking down today's draft, gaining not only a 3-0, but the right to add one card to our vintage cube pool and choose one card to remove for the remainder of the season. Daniel's change today was to remove Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and add Comet, Stellar Pup. So keep an eye out for Comet in the future videos. You can always check out the Cube Cobra link to the cube below to see the list of all such changes that have been made to the cube through the season. Before we go, we can take a quick look at the Season 4 overall scoreboard now. This was the only draft that we did today, so not a lot of movement, but you do see some new faces, and the top of the leaderboard is getting a bit more crowded as we add more drafts. As far as the invites go, there has been a slight shift with Pellman, Scott, Prose, and Joey now holding the top 4 seeds, and Matt, Armstrong, Daniel, and Levi holding down the at-large spots currently, with Spurlock, Spencer, and Brian nipping at their heels. It's way too early at the season to lock anybody in, though, so we'll have to see how this leaderboard changes over the next few months. That will wrap up our coverage today. As always, you can find the links to our Discord, social media, and today's cube in the description below. Thank you for watching, and we hope you come back next time.